This is a dark moment for America, for America, for America, for America, for America, for America, for America.
This is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination. 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 Assassination.
This is such bullshit! I've never been so pissed in my whole life! And this murder Charlie Kirk right here in Utah! I'm so freaking pissed right now! This is bullshit! I just saw blood squirting out of his neck! I love that guy! He would have been our next president! I am so pissed right now! Why do they always come with fucking violence? Gosh damn it! Use your freaking words as they're talking to you people! Who shot Charlie Kirk? I'm driving down a problem right now! I'm so pissed! Yeah.
This guy's gonna get fucked so bad!
Yeah, whatever! Get out of here! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out of here! Get out!
Trying to fuck that up.
Go back to mom right now, you fucking piece of shit!
Well, I've said on News Nation multiple times, really through this starting, that they're already here. It's going to happen. I don't mean to obviously fearmonger, but I think to think that they're not here is irresponsible. I think they're already here. I think some of them are homegrown, but I also think others came up through the border as well. So I think you've got a combination of individuals here. But in my opinion, I think it's really just a matter of time. The Iranians seem to be responding similarly to how they responded when we took out Qasem Soleimani. They bombed one of our Air Force bases, and then they attempted to assassinate President Trump and Ambassador Bolton with individuals that were already here. And so I see something like that happening. Now, do I think it's going to happen in the next hour? No, but I do think it's just a matter of time.
Shalom. I would like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakar Kodash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all you sincere Akim, pushing this word across the four corners of the world. And just another news update through the spirit, the power, and the vibration of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And as you can see, what's currently taking place within this world, especially within this American society, just a great disorderly mass, confusion, and perplexity. And our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, prophesied what would be taking place, hence the signs of thy times before his second arrival upon this earth. Within the book of Luke, the 21st chapter and the 25th verse, he stated how there should be distress upon the nations with perplexity. And look at the current condition of the earth. And again, especially America, aka Babylon the Great, because America is that main focal point of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai's great divine judgment. And the elites on the left-hand side, they want this American society be within a chaotic environment. And I brought this article out a few times, how the elites on the left-hand side, they prophesy on the left-hand side, hence predictive programming or revelation of the method, and where they are social engineering the masses to accept their left-handed NWO. And it's going to be through an era of shock events. And a shock event is a sudden, disruptive, and unexpected occurrence or event. Hence, these false flag operations or these psychological operations, which is nothing but a military tactic where they shape the attitudes, the emotions, and the behaviors of the public's opinion. In other words, fear-mongering, which is nothing but left-handed enchantments or energy harvesting, which are nothing but left-handed enchantments where this so-called shadow government harvests all this negative energy from the human emotion, and mainly to maintain their governance by pushing forth their left-handed agendas. Like, for example, look at this situation currently going on with Charlie Kirk. Like, it's plastered all throughout mainstream news, these so-called alternative websites, podcasts, just plastered on all social media. And that's a lot of energy harvesting being done by the so-called shadow government. And that was nothing but a shock event. And that's because this so-called recent event, it was sudden, it was disruptive, and it was also unexpected. And now it's going to cause significant changes, and pretty much it's going to require a response. And again, remember, these elites on the left-hand side, they must do this in order for them to feel justified by bringing forth their solution, aka this NWO, which is why President George H.W. Bush, he made a speech back in the 1990s at the United Nations, and he stated, "We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a NWO, hence a New World Order." And he said, "A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations." So how this current fashion of the world is being ran at this moment, these elites on the left-hand side, they consider it as the law of the jungle. And that's because you have a do-it-thou-wilt mindset, lifestyle that's implemented within this American society. Like, you can worship whatever you want, and you are liberated to have sex with what or whoever you want to. And mind you, all of these satanic and false ideologies were all created by the so-called shadow government. And that's why they have a thing called PRS, problem, reaction, and solution. So they created this whole problem, whether it is economically, financially, spiritually, morally, and for sure politically. So again, these higher ups are manipulating the masses by introducing a problem. Then they get a reaction from the masses that they created just so they can use their own means to solve the problem. Hence, by instituting this NWO. Again, a world where the rule of law governs the conduct of nations. So again, expect an era of shock events. And we as the hopeful elect, we supposed to be likened as the children of light. Hence the knowledge, wisdom, and that spiritual understanding of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. So therefore, we cannot be caught up into Satan's devices where the masses are currently getting caught up into. They are gravitating towards Esau's enchantments. So we cannot get caught up into that spiritual darkness. Like whatever the world are gravitating towards, we as the hopeful elect, again, the children of light, we supposed to go the opposite way through the spirit. And that takes me to this article from naturalnews.com. And it says, Klaus Schwab says WEF, which is the World Economic Forum, will unleash an era of shock events to bring about a globalist NWO. And this article came out on August the 26th, 2024. And I'm going to read just a few points just to bring forth more edification through the spirit regarding this lesson. And it says, now the C-19 pandemic is over, the WEF is shifting gears with plans to unleash an era of shock events that will catalyze the transition to a globalist-led NWO. The WEF is warning the world hits their predictive programming or their revelation of the method, and that's because it's a Freemasonry ritual that these elites on the left-hand side have to warn the masses of their hidden and future agendas before it actually takes place. And that's whether the masses or population hear or forbear. Like on the left-hand side, they feel like they should have no cloak for their sins. Remember, it stated how the man of sin, referring to the tabernacle of Esau Edom, how he's going to pose himself as the Most High. So, of course, he gravitates towards the doctrine, the spiritual concepts of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua. But, of course, it's all within left-handed means. So it says, the WEF is warning the world about this coming shock event era to prepare everyone for the horrors that are slated to come next, including the reduction of the U.S. from global superpower to just another globalist controlled third world dystopia. Since the pandemic eased, the reality is we haven't had enduring global leadership on much, and it's hard to imagine that changing soon. The WEF says about how the existing political landscape is crumbling. This is partly because superpowers are terribly burdened with global wars and domestic challenges. The WEF solution to this is, of course, a transition from individual nation states to a global governance scheme where all countries of the world are controlled from the top down pyramid style. Since 2024 is another election year, the WEF is also focused on that. The threat of disinformation spreading during the biggest election year in history means that the world needs a global censorship scheme both online and in the streets, according to the WEF. People have fought back in all political systems, driven by a conviction that there must be a better, more effective way to govern, the WEF says. In most countries, even after their vote, citizens will continue to challenge their leaders, questioning whether they have the capacity to tackle our many post-pandemic risks. Reading between the lines, the WEF is basically saying that civil unrest is on the rise due to the policies it helped implement that have tyrannized we the people and left people angry and demanding answers. Rather than quit the tyranny train, the WEF wants to amplify it with plans to crush any uprising or rebellion before it gets the chance to take hold. And it says right here, more people than ever are mentally ill due to destructive globalism. And according to Isaiah the 60th chapter, it stated how the people are going to be within gross darkness, hence spiritual darkness. So therefore, these people are ripe for the taking, especially this younger generation. And it says right here, the WEF fully recognizes that its globalist agenda is destroying people's minds, leaving hundreds of millions, if not billions of people with ever worsening mental illness. The mental health crisis worsened considerably as a result of the C-19 pandemic and all the government tyranny that came with it. There is a new type of anxiety, the WEF says, that is leading to a sense of alienation that makes it hard to function and even suicide. Much of this is being driven by things like climate change hysteria, constant fear-mongering about an economic collapse or global crisis, and newfound claims that upwards of 50% of the existing human employee population being replaced by AI robots over the next several years. As for the other shock events that the WEF is foretelling, these include the threat of a new global extremist group emerging to ignite chaos around the world. And recently you have these ex-CIA women by the name of Sarah Adams and also Tracy Walder. I want to say she was ex-FBI as well. And they stated how it's Iranian sleeper cells all throughout America. And they're just waiting for the so-called powers that be to so-called activate them. And they're going to stir up more chaos, civil and social unrest, just so that this shadow government can use their own means to solve their problem. So this is all orchestrated by the higher ups, so therefore they can forge their NWO. Number 2, a new cyber pandemic that takes down the internet and possibly all things electronic. Number 3, global warming disasters that lay waste to entire societies and their economies. The WEF predicts that while the world is distracted with multiple major wars and leadership in decline, the globalists will catalyze a new extremist group to install as the world's new age governing body, along with a new phase of terrorism to keep people scared and in check. Hence, Satan devices. From the false flag and psychological operations, all of this negative energy harvesting, these are nothing but left-handed enchantments, sorceries upon the masses. And that takes me right to 2 Ezra 16, verse 18. The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars and the powers should stand in fear, the beginning of evils, what should I do when these evils should come? And as this world are gravitating towards more carnality, looking for a better solution for this American government, we as the hopeful elect are going to gravitate towards Yahweh Bahashim El Shai on the right-hand side. And the more that we unplug from the shadow of Egypt, referring to America, the more that we plug into our true power source, Yahweh Bahashim El Shai. Because it's really going to take some high-level divine intervention of these dire calamities that's coming upon this earth. And as this world, including the 2/3 of our people, are plugging more back into this world and expecting a better outcome for America. So again, we cannot be ignorant of Satan's devices, hence these shock events, these false flag operations or psyops, like as the masses are being manipulated by. And it takes me right to Luke 12 and 49. I am come to send fire on the earth, and this is Yahweh Shah speaking, and what will I if it be already kindled? So by the time frame that Yahweh Shah along with the angels return, hits his second coming, it's literally going to be hell upon earth within America, aka Babylon the Great. So if it's being kindled, that means it's being inflamed, it's being more heightened. Like look how heightened the tension within America is being increased. From a racial standpoint, from a political standpoint, from an economically standpoint, and also a spiritual standpoint. So Yahweh Shai giving us game through the spirit that it's going to be total turmoil, chaos before his second coming. So again, with that being said, expect an era of shock events. And that takes me right to 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, the 14th verse, within the GNT, and that's the Good News translation. The world and the people in it are doomed. And that's the current fashion of this world. And we are soon about to see a lot of casualties of war. And that's because these people, including the 2/3 of our people, are going to be led to this NWO as sheep to the slaughter. So the world and the people in it are doomed. The war that will bring their destruction is very near, which is ultimately World War III, the Battle of Armageddon. But before we get to that great climax, it's going to be racial wars, class wars, social wars, and we're witnessing right now political wars. Like, look how many people are protesting and even rioting within the streets within recent news by this right-wing guy, Charlie Kirk. These so-called conservatives are very upset about this. And that's if this shock event of him getting unalive is even true. Because we know how Esau get down with his mainstream news and of course with his technology, and where he can deceive the masses of higher levels that we cannot even think that he's capable of doing. So again, the war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. Again, that heightened political tension. And it's so prevalent that you can go on social media and you'll just see a random comment that will say he or she must be a MAGA or Trump supporter, or vice versa. So that's a lot of political conflict, and more so a political divide within the so-called United States. And here's the point, verse 16. There will be great political turmoil with one group trying to overpower another and gain control, while ignoring the legitimate government. So these Americans are going to be pushed to the length of civil and social unrest, and they're going to rebel towards the government. And again, these elites on the left-hand side, they want this problem, reaction, and solution. They are baiting the masses right into their plans, which is again this NWO. Verse 17. There will be no longer free access to the cities, hence these military checkpoints, and the only means that you can be able to function within these smart cities is by the means of that microchip. And that's the MOTB according to the Bible. This is where all of this financial straits going into the inflation, and pretty soon this economy imploding and transitioning to a global digital paradigm. All roads within this fourth industrial revolution are leading into the MOTB. Verse 18, because the struggle for power will bring destruction, terror, and total confusion wherever people live. And again, what did Yahushua predict or prophesy? How there should be distress upon nations with perplexity, which goes into uncertainty. In other words, confusion. So because the struggle for power will bring destruction, terror, and total confusion wherever people live. Driven by famine and terrible suffering, people will assault their neighbors and mercilessly plunder their possessions. So that's how chaotic this American environment is going to get, where people are going to be so uncivilized and driven out of their human wits that it's going to be a dog-eat-dog world out here, like a every man for himself environment. And you best believe it's going to get so anarchic and lawless where these people are going to be fully driven by Satan. So we are witnessing all of this political divergence and differences and conflicts that's taking place within the so-called United States of America, where everything is supposed to be unified, but we are clearly seeing nothing but separation, division, polarized views. And that's a heavy telltale sign through the spirit. If you see a kingdom or a house being divided like this, then therefore that particular kingdom or house cannot stand. So how much more of America? And that takes me right to Mark 3 verse 23 within the NLT, and that's the New Living Translation. Yahushua called them over and responded with an illustration. How can Satan cast out Satan? He asks. A kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. In the way that this racial and political tension is being more heightened within this American society, is creating more of a toxic and chaotic environment. And where these Americans are at that boiling point, like this type of environment is definitely going to transition into a civil war 2.0. And that's because that what was then is definitely now. Nothing new is under the sun. So a kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. And we're witnessing civil and social unrest on a daily basis here within America. And it's a great honor seeing the city of confusion, aka America, breaking down. Verse 25. Similarly, a family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And that family can be referenced into America. Look how these American citizens are at odds with one another. And also pursuant to Isaiah the 19th chapter, it stated how the Egyptians should be against the Egyptians, which is referencing to how these Americans are going to be at odds or fighting against one another. It's like these American citizens, they all have polarized views concerning the ideologies, the philosophies, and the concepts within this modern world. So that's a family being splintered. So therefore, that's a family being divided into smaller parts. Verse 26, and if Satan is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He will never survive. So you put America within this concept. If these Americans have so many mixed viewpoints and just different belief systems, and with the current presidency, this political tension is being more sensitive. And we already know by default, these people are not anchored in Yahushua. They're not going to have any type of restraints, and they're going to follow suit with their sinful nature. Like these Hollywood movies that came out in recent years and painted America to be within a dystopian society still cannot measure up of how lawless this American society will be within real time, like the true reality of it. So with that being said, these Americans are being divided. They are fighting against themselves. So therefore, how can America stand? So if they're not being unified, then therefore they will not survive. And that's the fate of America. So that concludes the lesson through the Spirit. So again, remember, we as the hopeful elect, we are considered as the children of light, which means that we was called out of darkness into Yahushua's marvelous light, which is having that spiritual knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that comes with great responsibility. And as being those watchmen, we're supposed to be disciplined by being vigilant, having that spiritual awareness and discernment, and definitely not shifting towards Esau's crafty devices as the world is doing. And that's because Yahushua stated, when he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So never trust thy enemy, especially when he has already put it out there via his revelation of the method to inspect an era of shock events. All of this has to happen for it to be aligned with his great reset. So with that, hopefully you all was edified, you all stay strong, keep pushing forward. Shalom.